So, if I depart this earth rather suddenly, please make sure I get a good PM. Brenda Page wrote those words, a letter of a death foretold.
There was a body of a female and would appear to have met a violent death.
Almost 3,500 statements and photographs, and it's all been kept for all this time in the hope that one day we get to a trial.
It was obvious that she was afraid of him.
I mean, it obviously made headlines at the time. It sold, it sold newspapers this revelation that, she wasn't just this scientist.
This is where Brenda spent her last evening in this world before she was brutally murdered.
He said he was going to kill her. It never occurred to me that he would do it.
Sir, can I ask you first of all, have you agreed upon a verdict?
On July 14th, 1978, Dr. Brenda Page was discovered brutally murdered at home in her flat on Allen Street in Aberdeen. The following morning, a neighbour gained entry to Brenda's flat and made a gruesome discovery. Hours later, her ex-husband was arrested on suspicion of her murder, but it would take police and prosecutors almost 45 years to finally bring her killer to justice. This is Echoes of Silence, the murder of Dr. Brenda Page. "13 Allen Street, Aberdeen. A small, unassuming property on a quiet side street in a relatively peaceful section of the city. Off the beaten path and yet still extremely close to the thriving hub of the city centre. Unbeknown to many, this was also the location of one of Aberdeen's most brutal crimes of passion. Dr. Brenda Page lived in the bottom left flat of 13 Allen Street. She bought the property after separating from her husband in 1976 and was murdered here in 1978. Born in East Anglia in Ipswich in 1946, Brenda Page was an incredibly intelligent woman. Graduating from University College London with a first-class honours degree in zoology, she went on to gain her PhD in genetics at the University of Glasgow. It was during her time in Glasgow that Brenda met her future husband, Christopher Kit Harrison.
There's no doubt that Brenda was extremely bright. In her early 30s, she's, head of the genetics department at Aberdeen University. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Christopher Harrison is well educated also, and so is not, your stereotypical murder accused or even remotely involved with the police. Went on to study zoology at Cambridge University, then went across the United States to teach at Harvard University. He moved back to the UK and went to Glasgow University, and that's when he met Brenda in 1971. They later got married in 1972. So you can see how the two of them got together. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. Then after they got divorced, Brenda bought herself a flat in the West End of Aberdeen.
Multiple accusations of domestic violence emerged against Harrison after their separation, and it was revealed that Brenda had changed her hairstyle to conceal marks and bruises, and even visited the hospital on more than one occasion.
The first time I knew that he had hurt her was when she came home with a mark on her forehead. I was told that it was caused by a book being thrown at her. She said it was like walking on eggshells.
She told me that her husband's behaviour could be unpredictable. I think she loved him very much. She wanted her marriage to work, but she was concerned.
There was one occasion when he came to my flat where he asked me to phone Brenda
because she wouldn't take phone calls from him. I think at that point there was a restraining order. If he killed her, she said, he would do it so that nobody would know. That's what she told me.
An interdict was filed against Harrison to prevent him from contacting Brenda, and in 1977, their divorce was at last finalised. Free to live her new life away from her controlling, abusive ex-husband, Brenda saw an advert in a local paper looking for attractive, intelligent ladies who may be interested in part-time work.
She had seen an advertisement in the Press and Journal from an escort agency, and it was asking for people to go to entertain people in the oil industry for dinner at the Treetops Hotel.
I knew about her joining the escort agency. At the time, I might have joined it myself because I was so pregnant that I didn't think it was a good idea. It wasn't an escort agency in the sense of loose women. It was a professional agency. They wanted intelligent people to be able to talk to professional gentlemen at a dinner, and I think that was the reason she joined it.
I think double life's almost unfair because I think it was probably only a very small part of her life. I mean, she was married and then obviously they separated, divorced. But you have to kind of think, she was a 32-year-old, clearly very attractive woman, very intelligent woman, in the prime of her life, and she was now single, and here was an opportunity for her to do that, make some money, and socialise with kind of businessmen who are up here. And I mean, it obviously made headlines at the time. It sold newspapers this revelation that she wasn't just this scientist, so it would have raised eyebrows.
Friends of Dr. Page were aware of her ex-husband's jealousy, and his distaste for her new job as an escort was evident. On July 13th, 1978, Brenda Page attended a dinner with two gentlemen at the Treetops Hotel. During this time, Kit Harrison's car was spotted in the car park.
Well, I was standing beside my car and I just happened to notice a Mini Countryman. It just looked pretty rough.
Around an hour later, Mr. Alexander returned to the hotel on another job, but the Mini Countryman was nowhere to be seen. In the early hours of July 14th, someone would gain access to Brenda Page's flat on Allen Street and lay in wait for her return. As she readied herself for bed, her killer struck.
This woman had been struck on the face and head at least 20 times by a blunt instrument. She died while in a state of coma from the inhalation of blood, which originated from her facial injuries. There was extensive bruising on the back of both hands, with some overlying abrasion and dislocation of the right ring finger, classical of defensive injuries.
Her body was discovered and reported by a neighbour, and just a few short hours later, Christopher Harrison was arrested.
I was instructed by the senior investigating officer to go to the address of the ex-husband of Brenda Page. It was very unemotional and offhand. He didn't ask how she died, and it simply said something like, "Oh dear, that's awful."
Unfortunately, there just wasn't enough evidence to officially charge Harrison with his ex-wife's murder, and so he went free. The case remained open for a time but was wound down by police in 1980. Then, in 2015, Police Scotland's major investigation team launched one final re-investigation of the evidence gathered back in 1978. This included utilising advancements made in forensic and DNA analysis.
40 years on, Dr. Brenda Page's murder remains unsolved. We're going to need witness evidence to help us put the final pieces of the jigsaw together to work out what happened to her in the last moments. I believe there's people out there with information that still haven't contacted the police, particularly neighbours from Allen Street, or any ex-colleagues or students from the University of Aberdeen, or really anyone else from the area who is sitting on information that thinks maybe the police are already aware of it or hasn't taken the trouble to phone us yet. Please phone in with that information, it may well be vital.
In March of 2020, police revealed that a 79-year-old man had been arrested in connection with Brenda Page's murder and that almost 800 new pieces of evidence had been amassed. The man arrested was Christopher Harrison. The trial began on February 21st, 2023, and Harrison, represented by advocate Brian McConaughey, denied all charges against him. He claimed a special defence of alibi, stating that he was at home at the time of the alleged crime. As in all cases, the burden lies with the prosecution to prove guilt. That responsibility fell to Advocate Depute Alex Prentice.
Dr. Harrison, are you familiar with the tale of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde?
I am.
Dr. Jekyll, a well-respected and intelligent scientist who had a darker alter ego who didn't accept responsibility for his crimes and ways. That was the tale, wasn't it?
That was the tale.
That description sums you up. On the one hand, you can be a kind and considerate man, but on other occasions, a violent and aggressive man.
I'm a kind and considerate man.
You have a violent temper which in the past caused rages of which Brenda was afraid. Is that not true?
It is not. One has, as a child, model snowstorms in a bottle, and if you shake the bottle, you'll see the storm. Rages can be internal.
Do you agree that you had rages of which Brenda Page was afraid?
I don't know.
The trial lasted for a total of 16 days, and on March 9th, after just 2.5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict.
Members of the jury, will the spokesperson please stand? Sir, can I ask you first of all, have you agreed upon a verdict?
We have.
What is your verdict in respect of the accused, Christopher Merlin Harnett Harrison, of charge 4 on the indictment?
Guilty.
Can I ask, is your verdict unanimous or by a majority?
By a majority.
Christopher Harrison, having taken account of the whole circumstances of your case, I sentence you to life imprisonment and impose a punishment part of 20 years. That is all.
After the sentence was passed, Christopher Harrison, aged 82, was led away to spend what many believe to be his final years behind bars.
As Brian McConaughey's defence said, every likelihood that he will, die in jail. Not many people live to be 103, which would be 102, 103 in 20 years when he can apply. He didn't look to be in the best of health, and if he does, if you walk out of prison at 102, 103, if I was a betting man, which I am occasionally, I would probably put money on the fact that he will never be a free man.